Can someone please help clarify that this is Hendrick Motorsports' 40th anniversary season? Because I'm just not too sure it is. I don't remember hearing anybody mention it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the garage. If you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. We talk a lot about NASCAR on this channel, and it's only gonna get better. So please hit that subscribe, like the video, and let's get into it. So Hendrick Motorsports dominates the Cookout 400 at Martinsville Speedway. They come home with a 1-2-3 finish. All of their drivers finishing inside the top 8. That was Alex Bowman finishing in that 8th spot. And William Byron sealing the deal, getting his 3rd win of the season already. And it really seems like he's solidifying himself as the early championship favorite this year. Right now, it looks like William Byron, number 1. He's your favorite for the championship right now. And then a close number 2 is his Hendrick Motorsports teammate, Kyle Larson, who ironically enough finished his 2nd at Martinsville. I think if you're making an early playoff bracket and you don't have Byron and Larson in your final 4, then you just don't know what you're talking about right now. But yes, William Byron, he wins at Martinsville. It was a storybook race for Hendrick Motorsports. You couldn't script it any better. Those beautiful hot rod red paint schemes, the 1,500 Hendrick Motorsports employees in the stands there supporting them and rooting them on. It's the 40th anniversary season. It's Martinsville. It was just the perfect recipe, and then they come home with that 1-2-3 finish. If you're a Hendrick Motorsports fan, you probably really liked this race, and we're going to get into if we like the race or not a little later. Right now, I kind of want to look at where some drivers finished, though, at Martinsville. Despite Hendrick's dominance at the end of the race, I think it was a pretty solid day for Ford. I think this is finally a day that they can hang their hat on. It was a great comeback for Ryan Blaney and his team. At one point, he was running 26th on speed. I mean, that is not where the defending champion, the defending Martinsville winner should be running at all. They made the aggressive call to come get 2 tires. That got him track position. It was a gamble, and it worked out. Blaney was up there in the second half of the race. He really held that track position pretty well, and he even had a shot to win in the overtime finish there. Stewart-Haas Racing finally showing some flashes of their old self again. People were saying at the beginning of the season that they were impressed with Stewart-Haas and that they might be back, but then in reality, Stewart-Haas Racing was running like 20th. I wasn't really on board with that, but I am on board with them getting 2 top 10 finishes at Martinsville. I think that's impressive. Ryan Preece came home in 9th. Chase Briscoe came home in 10th. Josh Berry had great speed. He qualified well. His pit crew just really didn't do him many favors. He didn't really get the finish that he deserved there. And despite Stewart-Haas Racing's struggles all throughout this season, Noah Gragson has been the one silver lining for that team. He gets a 20th place finish at Martinsville, but I think that's okay. You gotta have a down day every now and then. So Preece and Briscoe in the top 10, Berry showing good speed, and Noah Gragson has been solid throughout the entire season. Now I can say that I agree that Stewart-Haas Racing is looking better than they at least did last season. While we're on the topic of Ford, I want to give a shout out to Todd Gilliland, who finished in 13th. That's a great run for him. He kind of ran in that 10th to 15th range, and he slots right in the middle in 13th, so good run for him. Now, the Ford team that did not show up was RFK. They ran poorly all race long. Buescher kind of scratched and clawed his way to a 15th place finish, so I guess he kind of came out a little better, but it was a grind to get that finish. And then Brad Keselowski, P24, just nowhere to be found on the day at all. Kind of a rough day for a team that was considered the top Ford team for a few weeks there last season. Of course, Ryan Blaney and Team Penske late in the playoffs, they kind of took over those honors. But for a few weeks there, it really looked like RFK was the top Ford team. Now at Martinsville, kind of quiet, nowhere to be found. Both cars finishing laps down. But if you're an RFK fan, don't panic. I've got some encouraging news for you. In this race last year, Keselowski finished 24th and Buescher finished 14th. Practically identical to where they finished in the Spring Martinsville race this year. And last year, they worked out just fine for them. So you'll be okay. They'll figure it out. Toyota kind of ran all over the place as a manufacturer this weekend at Martinsville, and I was kind of surprised. It was a good day for 23XI, who got both of their cars into the top 10. Tyler Reddick had kind of a quiet day, but also a methodical day, getting his way up to the front and comes home with a quiet top 10 finish. And then Bubba Wallace, man, I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing out of him. He was up front all race long. He just barely missed that pole award. Brings it home with a top 5 finish, and then next week we go to Texas, where he came that close to winning in the playoffs. Liking what I'm seeing from that team, and then their team owner, Denny Hamlin, also had a pretty solid race. Chris Gabehart made the sketchy call to come get tires at that overtime finish. It was a gamble, and it just didn't pay off for the team. If you get a rash of cautions, maybe that works out, but Denny Hamlin came off of pit road in 10th, ended up finishing the race in 11th. Really hard to pass there at Martinsville, but again, we will get into that later. Christopher Bell had struggles all race long, so I'm not really going to hold that 35th place finish against him. But Truex and Ty Gibbs were nowhere to be found on Sunday. Not what those teams are looking for at all. Truex was my pick to win the race on Sunday at Martinsville. I really thought that he was going to be going out with a vengeance after he got the race stolen from him at Richmond, and then the controversy on that restart. I thought he was going to be up front all race long and spoil that Hendrick party. But no, he came home P18, a lap down, with his teammate Ty Gibbs in P19 right behind him. For lack of a better word, that's horrible for Joe Gibbs Racing. That's not good at all. I spoke on Martin Truex Jr., but how about Ty Gibbs? He was so impressive to start the season. I felt like he had Bristol in the bag. He just couldn't quite manage his tires like the veterans could. He still got a top 10 finish in that race, though. Phoenix was a great race for him. He came home in 3rd. Coda, he was up in the mix. He was contending for the win. Also came home 3rd. Top 5 finish in Las Vegas. Top 10 finish at Atlanta. And you just had to ask yourself, when is Ty Gibbs going to finally break through and get that first career win? It's got to be any weekend now, right? Yeah, but now that momentum's kind of fizzling out a little bit. The last 2 races, he's finished outside of the top 15. So yeah, I don't know. Bad race all around for Joe Gibbs Racing. No cars in the top 10 at all at Martinsville. I know Martinsville is a Hendrick track, but it's a pretty good track for Joe Gibbs too. So bad showing for that team. NASCAR, you have got to change the short track package. It feels like a sin to me to say that Martinsville is a mediocre track or that it's a really bad product. I've been watching NASCAR long enough to remember a time where Martinsville was one of the best tracks on the schedule. I mean, some of you viewers have only been watching NASCAR for a handful of years, and it's not unfair for you to say that Martinsville is a bad track in your eyes. I want to make it very clear that it's not the track's fault. It's the car, it's the aero package, it's the tires. I mean, I feel like we saw pretty good racing in the Xfinity and the Truck Series this weekend. It's so clear that Martinsville has so much potential to be that great short track, but you simply just cannot pass here. It's just a game of follow the leader. And honestly, I kind of felt like this weekend's race had some of the most parity that we've seen in a while at Martinsville. Logano was up front for most of the race. Hamlin was up front and led laps. He even won a stage. Larson won a stage. Elliott led a whole bunch of laps. And then ultimately, William Byron comes home and wins the race. So that's 5 drivers right there that were in the mix. But despite that little bit of parity in this weekend's race, it's still not the Martinsville that we grew to know and love. I mean, the tires have no fall off whatsoever. The next-gen cars are way too easy to drive at any track, really, but especially at Martinsville. They're shifting into the corners at Martinsville. That makes the car even easier to drive. Under no circumstances should this be happening. It's just a bad combination, and it makes a bad product, and I feel like NASCAR is just killing their roots and killing what made the sport popular to begin with. When we go to a track like Martinsville, when we really go to any track in general, the cars should be hard to drive. But at Martinsville, they should be wheel hopping, getting into the corners way too hot. The tires should be slick. They should be sliding around there. They should be getting into each other. They should be pissing each other off. There should be wrecks. There should be spins. It should be controlled chaos. At the beginning of a short track race, especially at Martinsville, Mike Joy on the Fox broadcast, he would say that they start the race with their tempers and their fenders intact. And essentially what that means is at the beginning of the race, their cars are clean and the drivers are cool and calm. And by the end of the race, the cars are going to be beat to hell. And then the drivers are going to beat each other to hell. But in today's NASCAR, the cars are so indestructible that they don't crush at all. So those fenders are always going to stay intact. And then they can't pass anybody or go anywhere. So the only people that they're pissed off at the end of the race is NASCAR. In 400 laps at Martinsville, we saw one car spin out. Of course, they say that there was a 3-car crash coming to the white flag, but Fox never showed it, which I can get into Fox and their broadcasting another day. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but all I'll say is that Fox has not been having a good year. Anyway, getting back to the main point, though, you turn on a Martinsville race and you're not expecting to see Brian Vickers in 2011 causing 20 cautions by himself. But you're also not expecting to see what we saw this weekend, where there is just no contact. Let me be very clear in telling you that NASCAR is a full contact sport. You should be able to get into drivers and move them and pass them that way. The beating and banging short track racing of old that we saw just a handful of years ago is going to go extinct if NASCAR doesn't make a few changes. At the end of the day, I'm just a fan, right? Just like you. I don't know how to change this. I don't know anything about aerodynamics or how the cars work or how to make a better tire, right? But what I do know is what a good product is and what's not a good product. I've watched NASCAR for half of my life. I know good racing when I see it. And the last couple of years at Martinsville, a track that has become beloved by fans over the years, that's not good racing. I just like to watch cars go fast and go in circles. That's the extent of my knowledge. I can't offer any advice on how to fix the bad racing at Martinsville, but what I can say is that this next-gen car is far too easy for the drivers to drive. Not only that, I feel like these cars need to crush. This is the top stock car series in the world. There needs to be some kind of penalty for getting into another driver or for hitting the wall or etc. These cars are so indestructible that it's kind of like going to a go-kart track at the carnival or at an amusement park. Have you ever raced one of those go-karts before? It's like you go up, you pay $15, you get in this little go-kart, and you make a couple laps around with your friends. You get in this go-kart, and it's slow. Everyone's running the same speed, so you can't pass anybody. It drives smooth as silk, so you don't have to worry about the handling of it, which of course you shouldn't because it's a go-kart. And if you happen to make contact with somebody, it's got these big bumpers on it, so it doesn't sustain any damage whatsoever. That is what it was like to watch the race at Martinsville. It seemed like they were driving a go-kart just like that. And that is not good when we're talking the top series of stock car racing in the world. I'm sure some are going to watch this and say, oh, you don't respect good pit strategy. You don't respect clean green flag racing. They don't have to get into each other because they're professionals. But no, what I respect is good racing. I respect good products. I respect turning on the TV and watching a NASCAR race for 3.5 hours and turning it off and saying, wow, I was genuinely entertained. And who I respect the most is NASCAR and their attempt to try to make this sport great again. Because in a lot of ways, I think it's working. I think NASCAR is becoming cool again. I think it's becoming popular again. NASCAR has a lot of new fans coming in. The casual sports fan who's just looking for something to watch on a Sunday afternoon, or the Netflix people who saw the documentary and is giving NASCAR a go. But that product, what we saw at Martinsville, a track that should be gaining so many eyes and that people should be turning off the TV and saying, wow, that was a great race, I can't wait for next week, in reality is just going to make people go away. It's just so frustrating for me because back in the day, Martinsville was a great race. Richmond was the action track. And Bristol was the hardest ticket in NASCAR to get. Now, Martinsville looks like that. Richmond is going to lose a date next year if you haven't heard. And Bristol can't even sell out half of their venue anymore. This sport was made on short track racing. The crashes, the controversy, the close corners racing. It's no more. It's going to go extinct if NASCAR doesn't have a long meeting about what we've been seeing so far at short tracks the last couple of years. Whew, I'm out of breath. But you can't say I'm not passionate. You can't say I don't care. Because at the end of the day, I love this sport and I want to see it thrive. But NASCAR, you gotta change something. Short tracks like Martinsville and Richmond is what made me fall in love with this sport. And we have plenty of great racing at other tracks, don't get me wrong. Not every race could be a banger. Not every race could be a Game 7 moment. But when you have a track like this that is made for contact, it's made for people to get into each other, to have close quarters racing, to have crashes, to have fights. And they're just spinning like ballerinas around the track for 400 laps. Joey Logano doesn't change his right side tires for 180 laps. These are just inexcusable offenses. And as a die-hard, passionate fan who loves this sport and wants to see it thrive, again, something's got to give. So, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching today's episode of The Garage. If you enjoy this video and other videos like this, I would consider hitting that subscribe button down below, hitting the like button on the video to let me know that you enjoyed it, and maybe even comment and tell me what you thought of this race. Maybe you thought this was the best race ever and you think that I'm crazy. Also, if you want to see more of me, go follow me on my other social medias. That'll be right here and down below in the description for the links. I'll have another video out this week, maybe some power rankings. I was even thinking of maybe doing a 8 races into the season, who should panic, who should not panic type video. And another video that I'm kind of toying with is I'm well aware that this background here is boring. And this is a pretty sizable space. I think maybe we could do like a decorate the garage with me type video too. Anyways, guys, this video is probably way too long like I always tend to do, but thank you so much for coming along for the ride. And thank you guys for 900 subscribers. We are so close to hitting that 1,000 milestone. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm saying that. We've really been growing so much, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Everybody who's come and watched the videos, who's watched the crash compilation videos, especially my news reporting talking head videos. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'll see you again later this week. Have a great day.